Michael Calabrese, what's up, man?
How you doing, Matan? Good to see you, man.
Man, you look incredible. Time did not change you a bit.
Oh, are you serious? Man, you
Yeah,
you look
man.
way tanner than I used to look. I don't know, these Boston winters.
Yeah, I know. This Tel Aviv summers, I live in the desert, man.
It's
Uh
pretty nice.
man, so how's COVID and the band? What are you doing now?
Oh, well, you know, we finished a record at the end of February, just in the nick of time. We flew home, and about 3 days later, it was like total lockdown. So we were able to get a new record in, or at least a new recording in under the gun. But it wasn't too long after that like the stuff we had planned for the immediate future, tour in the spring, tour in the fall, and a couple, New Year's shows, and then, going into the following year, and it just all got wiped out. So we're hoping late next summer is going to be the earliest time we're going to be able to get back on the road, which is a real bummer and kind of scary. But we've been, kind of making do with our situation. Last weekend, at least four of us got together. We potted in New York City. We got tested. We all stayed together, didn't go out and do anything. And then, we're doing these online webisodes and stuff like that just to keep fan engagement going. But otherwise, we haven't played together as a band in 8 months.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's by far the longest ever, right? Since you started. I mean, with no comparison.
Yeah, pretty much. I can't remember when we first started as a band, it was the gigs were few and far between, but I think even then, we at least played every 3, 4 months, and that was before we were even making money doing it. But absolutely. Yeah, the longest planned break we ever had was 5 months, but that was, between records and people had life stuff going on. It was a needed break. But yeah, super crazy.
And where are you all located right now?
I'm in Boston. McDuck is in Charleston, South Carolina, and the girls and our newest member, Aki, all live in Brooklyn.
I was under the impression you're also in Brooklyn. So you moved to Boston?
Yeah, I was in Brooklyn for maybe a year and a half before I got rid of my apartment and, just floated around for basically 5 years. I would just like bounce between a couple bands, mostly like Street Dive, and then, get an Airbnb for the 2 weeks out of every 3 months that I wasn't touring or doing something.
Wow.
And so, but then I met a girl in Boston and we got married. So I was like, all right, maybe I should
Are
move
you
back to
in the
Boston.
city? In the city,
Yeah.
actually?
Yeah. We live in
My,
Roxbury.
wow,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible. So tell me, you have a daughter, right? How old?
Yes. Tilly. She just turned 20 months.
Amazing.
So yeah, man. So February 20th, she will be 2 years old.
And what do you say to the Mike pre-fatherhood? I mean, is it possible? Is it doable?
Yeah, it is. I would say to him, really the most important, like I always knew I wanted kids, so that wasn't the problem. I would say start learning how to take naps yourself because you are going to need them. Luckily, my touring life kind of prepared me for sleep deprivation, and the first couple months weren't too bad having a kid. But yeah, since having a kid, I've learned how to take naps because it's just utterly essential that you get rest.
But man, it's incredible. Didn't you have that fear inside that, on the one hand, I mean, I'm asking because I have a feeling that it's a topic that not a lot of people discuss. Being a parent and a touring musician is kind of, I mean, it doesn't jive well together. So my question, I feel like, so I've known you for a long time, and we didn't talk for a long time either. But
Yeah.
I always had that feeling that you're kind of a father figure, you know, sort of like you're just, yeah, man, the hang with you was, you're always the funny guy, but also the responsible guy. And I mean, so it's like, it makes sense, but also, you know, your life kind of took that turn of touring and being on the road all the time. So, but right now you can juggle the two things, even pre-COVID. And it's interesting for me to hear, I mean, how you handle it.
Yeah. You know, it's personally, at least what has worked the best, is like, I know that at least when I'm out on the road, that's work time and I'm engrossed and I'm, you know, making money and I'm, you know, being the supporter of the family while I'm out doing that. So at least there's like this aspect that's, justifying the absence. But other than that, you know, my wife and I met while I was a touring musician. So, you know, funny enough, these 8 months that I've been home are the longest amount of time that we've ever spent together continually. So she was really used to me, you know, leaving and coming back, and our relationship was fine based on that. So part of it also is just having a partner that understands it and you can help each other out with it, because it sucks for both of us at different times in different ways, but we help each other, you know, through all of that together. But it is a real balance. And especially as she gets older and we have another one on the way, even, I know you have, what, you're about to have 4?
Yeah, possibly.
Oh man, hopefully it's not twins. Yeah, but you know, I think it'll be harder and harder to be on the road, but you have to balance that with money and just also it's lifestyle. It's, you know, it's what you do for a living. It's your vocation. So, yeah, it's a lot of, you know, looking at pictures on my phone, and you know, lots of FaceTime. Thank God for FaceTime, and you know, just
Thank
making
God.
it work that way. Yeah.
Man, thank God for technology on that regard, huh?
Oh my God. I don't know how people did it, like calling from gas station payphones, like in the middle of the night. Yeah, I don't know.
Even that, man, before that,
Yeah.
sending mails, you know,
Yeah. No,
hoping the postman will get it.
I know. No, video, you know, teleconferencing or whatever has come a long way, and we're thankful for it.
Yeah. So you're not using any advice from that Matthew guy, the sleeping book that you had on.
Did you see
I watched
that?
your, yeah, man. I was blown away. He had a podcast with Joe Rogan.
Okay.
Joe Rogan had him on, and it was, man, 3 hours. I watched that podcast for like 4 times. I made notes, and I decided to completely change my life, and it worked for a week. But it was important, you know. It gave me some interesting information on how I fuck up my sleep.
Yeah, it made, you know, I had to like learn how to live with a lot of that information because I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it happen for myself all the time. And you know, I just stopped running through my head like all the bad stuff I was doing to myself because I wasn't sleeping. But, you know, a couple tips I kept with it, like, you know, no coffee after noon. And, you know, I've limited my coffee intake, you know, and my bedtime is pretty consistent. And also, you know, I know that, you know, he's like, if you can nap, I guess do it. But ideally you want that long stretch in the middle of the night. But, you know, I take what I can get.
You feel your body changed since starting with Lexter Jive, and now, like, you have higher requirements of yourselves?
For my body, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, back when you were 20 years old, you could just rock on, and right now
yeah.
it takes a toll on you, or you don't feel the
Oh yeah.
difference?
Oh no. I take it's a huge difference. And also I mean, there was a point where, you know, I got pretty overweight and, you know, wasn't eating right and was drinking too much and wasn't sleeping well. And all those things are kind of like the same, you know, sort of cycle. But I was like, okay, if I'm going to survive on the road and be the healthiest it can be, if I'm going to like be there for my daughter in any way or my wife, I got on a pretty strict, for about 2 years, I trained with someone in Boston and did a lot of weightlifting, and that completely changed the way I approach pretty much everything, because just the ethos of the training, and you can apply it to any aspect of what you do, of setting habits, and I'm able on the road to keep a really strict exercise regimen going, and that helps with sleep, it helps with mood, and it forces me to eat better. And I barely drink at all anymore. I drink way more water than I used to. It's like these different things. And it is, because you got it. This is the meat vehicle that you use to get through the world, and you need to, take good care of it.
Why didn't we do it when we were 20, man?
You didn't
What's
have
up
to.
with that?
I know, we were
That's the reason?
stupid. Yeah. Matan, we were, sometimes I think about how crazy we were, and I blame it all on Daniel Wright. I really do.
So I'm jumping. I mean, I'm going back. We're in 2005. I meet you. We play in a nice band. Man, it was a great time.
Yeah.
And 4 jazz musicians going to NEC, New England Conservatory of Music, start their own band. Right? You started there. You never met before, right? The 4 of you.
No.
And you start a band, and I mean, all of you came to NEC to dig jazz, to play changes, to play standards, and to be like the next whatever jazz person in New York. What the heck is going on? By the way, we're E-rated, so you can curse as much as you want, man.
Oh, really? Okay, great.
Yeah, go for E, man.
Well, fucking A.
Fucking A, man.
Yeah. Well, I remember very vividly this time. I think it was our very first tour as a band, and we had gotten together somehow this repertoire of songs, that covers and songs we had written, and it was weird music. It was like there was a part of it that was jazzy, there was a part of it that was poppy, but that's only because it had lyrics and maybe had a few songs with not usual jazz grooves, maybe more of like a traditional grooves, funk grooves, whatever. And we were riding around on tour, and we were like, back then we had laptops with CD drives, and you could like burn rewritable CDs, and we're like, let's just like do a blind playlist, everybody pick a song, pass it around continually until we fill a CD size. And we don't know what anyone else put on there, and we'll mix it or we'll burn it, and then we'll play it in the car. And so we passed it around, and we're kind of thinking like we still were getting to know each other and stuff. And we were still like pretty hardcore jazz heads at that point. And as it turned out, we popped the CD in, and it's like Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, the band, Neil Young, all of these, all of this pop and a lot of pop from like 60s, 70s, and sometimes even repeat songs. We had independently picked a lot of the similar songs, and we're listening to this, and I feel like it was kind of like this moment where we're like, well, okay, we like listening to all this music. Maybe we're all kind of closeted pop enthusiasts, and just being in the jazz environment, first of all, you're focused on your degree, and you want to, you're paying for that degree. And so you want to get the experience that you're paying for. And so maybe you're not thinking about all this other stuff that you're interested in. But also maybe deep down, like maybe your love of this pop music is slightly more important to you than the love of the music that you went to school for. And so we kind of it was a slow reckoning after that of like, well, I think we have the most fun and we sound the best when we don't play jazz, or at least if we don't play anything in between jazz and pop. It's like, let's pick a lane and just go for it. And it kind of seemed that we had a singer, McDuck was the original writer of songs for the band. And it's like, well, we're not going to like rewrite standards in a new way. So let's just write pop tunes and let's make them 3 to 4 minutes long, and let's like make a bar full of people scream and shout. And that was kind of the goal. That was like the vision, I guess. And so we, it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I always had more confidence in my understanding of pop music of the 60s and 70s than I did of jazz anyway. So like it was very natural, especially for me, to like slip into that sort of genre. And so that's what we did.
So why going to NEC, man? Why picking a jazz major? Seriously.
No, it's a good question. Because in terms of an education, specifically higher education, I mean, jazz band for me started in middle school, and then I did it through high school. And what's the next logical step? Doing it in college, especially since there wasn't a Beatles ensemble in middle school and high school. And
which, by the way, changes these years, and I'm so happy about it. I mean, contemporary music, pop, rock takes a stage now everywhere, and that's incredible. It's so awkward that for decades, like, it was only classical music and jazz in schools. In Israel as well. It's weird, man. It's weird. It's like disconnecting from the people in a way. If you like Paul Simon, why not play his music? Why do you have to play Charlie Parker? Not that there's anything wrong with Parker, but it's like, he's also great.
Right. Well, I know exactly. I mean, it's funny. It's like, well, first of all, the idea of learning jazz in an institution of higher learning is kind of it's self-defeating in a certain sense anyway, because original jazz was technically a folk music, and you didn't learn it in a school. You learned it in clubs and in bands that you were in, and in the community that you grew up in, but what's so amazing about jazz is that as it evolved, it became, I guess you would say, highbrow enough, or kind of analytical enough, where you could, create methodical ways of teaching it, and all the complications of it. It is as complicated as any classical music, at least to me. And so, I think it's almost like if somebody were learning creative writing, and they went to school to learn how to write, and part of that is learning all the great writers. And like, a lot of people are going to read Homer's Odyssey, and it's like, nobody really writes stories like that or writes in that sort of style anymore, but it's good to know it,
Yeah.
And it's good to have, especially as a band, it's real easy for us if we're in the studio and we're like, okay, the second scale degree of the third chord in the fourth bar of the bridge, is that major or minor or whatever, like we have a vocabulary, and we have a fast acting brain when it comes to discussing music in an analytical sense. And that can be really helpful and really important. But the funny thing is, the way we got good at being a band wasn't in classrooms or even forced ensembles. I say forced, but like, required ensembles. That was fun and you learned a lot, but it wasn't until we got out on the road, booked our own gigs, made mistakes on stage, learned what made people dance, play. It's a playing sort of practice. And that's something that you get some of in school for sure. But in terms of like, getting the people up and dancing and bringing people together in a community, which is what music was originally conceived for, that sort of stuff is learned in the doing and not necessarily in the learning. The learning is important, but in terms of application, you're not going to really know how to do that until you play those gigs and in front of people where you're getting that feedback.
Yeah.
And that's where you learn a lot of the important stuff.
So you find yourself with 3 other guys, you like sort of the same, not the same music, but around the same area. And you start assembling some songs, some tunes, and you go out, play some pubs. And what clicks inside of you that says, this is it, I'm going all in? And the reason why I'm asking this is Man, I fucked up with the time now. If I would make it on time, I would tell you, I would say share so many memories I have with you. But
Yeah, no,
basically,
it's fine. It's we can go for another half hour.
no, it's all
We're
good.
good.
The thing is that I remember that moment that we were in a band together, and there was a big kind of a big decision moment where everybody decided to split, and Daniel Wright said, "I'm going to California. Who wants to come with me?" And then I said, I'm gonna go for my dream. I'm gonna go to New York. Hagai said, I'm coming with you to California. Patrick said, I'm staying in Boston. And I don't remember what Dov said. Dov said whatever. No, Dov said New York.
Dove didn't say much. Yeah.
and you said, guys, I'm going with Lake Street Live. Now, I've been thinking about that for years, because what happened then, and we were in touch at these times, is that each and every one of you, you kind of left your apartments, you stayed at friend's place, you toured, you literally jumped heads in. I wouldn't even say freezing cold water. I would say head in the fan with the sharp edged blades. You
Yeah.
just went for it. And what made you feel like this is it? Looking back.
I think that's a good question. I don't exactly know what made me, where the feeling came from. But I remember a specific night, in fact, and we were headed to a gig, and we had been playing for a couple of years at that point, and it was McDuck who was, he was living with his girlfriend, and she was going to school for opera, and they were leaving Boston, and he was going to go with her, and we were like, what's going to happen with us? It was kind of a similar situation to what any band does that formed in college and afterwards, a relationship. It's like, who wants to go where? What do you want to do? And I remember McDuck was like, guys, I don't know if I can do this, because, I'm moving out of town, and like, we're not really making money, and like, I might need to help, pay rent while Monica's in, school, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And we had a big discussion. It was kind of a heart to heart, and afterwards I was just like, I feel like what I shared that night, I was just like, guys, I'm like, whatever happens, and we can, we can do this or not do this. But I'll just share that, like, I feel like, no matter what we do, Lake Street Dive will kind of always be there. And like, even if we break for 10 years and like meet back up, I'm just like, it's like the band Fish, like they say they're going to break up and then they go back on tour, for 5 years or whatever. And I was just like, I just had this sense. I was like, I don't see this really stopping anytime soon.
Wow.
And I don't know why I had that feeling, but I think it basically had something to do with the fact that like we were all driving somewhere, and like we were having fun at gigs and getting a good response, but also the fact that we were able to talk with one another and express ourselves and share, and there was a trust with one another. Like, I can tell you this, you can tell me that, we can get serious, we can get real, and we can respect each other. There's always been this level of, for better or worse, a kind of like, everybody has their independence in the band. And it's the longest running relationship I've ever had, technically. And now that I'm married, I kind of like, I see how that kind of applies to any partnership. It's kind of like, really any partnership that allows you to work together while you can also be who you are is kind of the way it works, because if you have to change who you are to be with someone, or someone's asking you to change in order to make it work, that's not really going to happen. So a couple things were in place, and I think one was, there was a lot of honesty, there was a lot of trust, there was a lot of freedom for each of us as individuals, and also there was no leader, which, sometimes there needs to be a leader and sometimes there just is. And a lot of those bands work just fine, but we were all writing music for the band. We were all making decisions as a group all the time, and I think part of it, or I think a big part of it, was just that. It was like, nothing would work unless we all worked together. And each one of us worked really hard at making the band work, And so, there were no weak links really. And we all saw the fruits of our individual labors play out in the greater labor of the band. And I think to this day, that's probably, the one thing I can see. I clearly saw that. I wasn't able to explain that at the time, but looking back, I probably felt that intuitively. I was like, I can be who I am with this band. Everyone else can be who they are. I know they have my back. I have theirs. And we're all doing this together. And if we don't all do this together, then that's fine too. But until one of us stops contributing as much as we already are, this band's just going to keep going, because, each of us is going to keep going. And so I think that it was almost like it wasn't a lot of thought, it was just it was there. And I, to this day, I'm, grateful and kind of perplexed as to how we chanced upon that sort of arrangement.
Wow, man, these are incredibly wise words. No, seriously.
We've lived a long life together.
Man, that's incredible. I would like can you please elaborate on the independent thing, that you're each independent? And then I'd like to ask you about your existence as a sort of a collective, which is also interesting, because there's a singer, but he's not the boss. There are two singers, but they're not the boss. Now there's sort of three singers, right? No, two singers, sorry. And you're still a collective. But talk to me about the independent, being each one independent.
Yeah, well, kind of an example of the way that manifests in a musical sense is like, somebody will bring a song to the band, and this has been since the early days up until now, and has been like, here's the song, and say, McDuck typically is just like, it kind of has this sort of feel, and maybe approach it this way, and here's the line that you play during the chorus, but other than that, who knows, right? And so we'll all go for it, and we'll all do our own thing, and it'll come together or it won't, and sometimes I think, there are a bunch of songs we never played, never got together, that I'm like, I wonder if we really worked on that song and found our individual, parts, and told each other what should happen, if we could have wound up playing that song. And then I realized, you know what, maybe that's beside the point, because unless we were able to play how we wanted to play, it's not worth doing the song, maybe, And so it's like, if the song is extracting something out of each of us, that our roles are clear, and we don't have to force our ideas onto one another, and it kind of happens naturally, then those are the songs we play. And coincidentally, I feel like those are the songs that work. Not coincidentally, those are the songs that work the best and people enjoy the most. But different levels of that. There's, when Bridget brings a song to the band, usually there's a lot of different parts that like you have to learn in order for the song to work. And when it comes for me, if I'm singing a background vocal part, I don't really have attachment to the way I sing. But if Bridget's like, here's the beat I came up with, let's start here. And I start playing the beat. And if I'm like, you know what, this is a cool beat and I'm into it, I'll continue to play it. But if I don't, she doesn't say anything, and it's kind of like, okay, I dig that beat and I see how it works, but this is kind of how I would play it. And it'll either work with the thing that I bring to it or the way I change it, or she'll go, oh, wait, that's way better. Or maybe the song won't get played for that reason, I don't really think that's happened yet, but it's always been the case. Like, even if somebody brings a lot of detail to the song they want to produce or arrange, we're each free to like do our own thing. We're also free to be like, what should I do here? To the other members of the band. There's really not a lot of ego when it comes to like, I'm not like, I'm the drummer, I come up with the drum parts, blah, blah, blah. I've only realized fully recently, like I've always been kind of a song drummer, or at least I gravitate towards the song drummers, the Ringo Starrs, or like any drummer that ever played with a singer-songwriter who really was behind a vocalist and in a pocket and like, emphasizing the tune. That was like the zone I wanted to be in. I never wanted to, sometimes I thought I had to be like a flashy person or a flashy player, but I really like to be in service, so unless I'm playing something that's in service, I don't know what to do with myself, and sometimes I'll have to ask, and other members will have to ask too, ask of us, Bridget asks me for bass line advice sometimes. McDuck asks Rachel, does that guitar line work for this, to the thing you're singing, whatever, so there's a give and take. And so it's like, we're all able to be independent. We can do what we want to do, but there's also, so that means that there's no forcing of ideas on one another. Otherwise there's no point. On the flip side of that, that you'll be respected for what you do, but you can also be listened to if you don't know what to do, so there's this a respect of individuality, but also, individual kind of vulnerability. We're able to be vulnerable with one another and be like, I honestly have no idea what to do during the song or whatever. And that's that's a musical way to talk about the individualism. In terms of the way the band works or the dynamics, there's just, sometimes it's mind-numbingly tedious, but there's lots of meetings and discussions and decisions made collectively, and everybody has their own opinion and everybody can get heard. And whether we're a type of democracy, we don't have a constitution, but we're kind of like, everybody's at least heard, and sometimes people are outvoted, and sometimes, even if there's a single person even if there's a veto, even if one person is a standout, that if someone's being like, I'm not going to do this, that it must mean something very important to them, that it's, that there's no point in putting one of us through something that, meaningfully harmful to them or whatever it is, so there again, there's kind of like an individual respect, but also a stepping back and being like, a voicing of needs, but also a vulnerability. And, we kind of respect each other that way. But that's the toughest part. The musical part it's an easier place to navigate. The other stuff, the business decisions, that's where bands break up. I feel like you see, like in Let It Be with the Beatles, you see them arguing about a guitar part and what should be played, but they're not actually arguing about the guitar part. They're arguing because somebody's making more money than the other one, or they're arguing because somebody else has, said something mean about their wife or whatever it is, So I think that's where bands break up, is the business decisions.
Oh man, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have kind of a rule book, like an unwritten constitution? So you, right now you're 5, right? You added Achille. Yeah, he's an incredible singer. Wow, what a beautiful addition.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a talk show offer. Come play at a talk show. It's in LA. 2 days from now, you guys have commitments. You go, you sit, and you need to make a decision. So is the decision going to be all 5 of you either yay or nay, or is it going to be majority, or is it going to be, you said something about a veto. So how's that decision going to be? How is it going to take place? How is it going to happen?
I mean, well, yeah, we're going to get on a call and flesh out the details from, probably it's our manager giving us the details. And then we talk it out. And usually it starts with like, yeah, I'm like, how down are you to do the gig? And you're like, I'm free and I'm excited to do it. And everybody basically shares like, their level of freedom or, their possible level of sacrifice. And sometimes it's been like, we've had discussions like, hey, we should do this. It's a good offer and blah, blah, blah. We're going to be there anyway. And someone's like, guys, I realize that, but like, it's my anniversary. And like, I feel like offers might come up like this in the future. And, it's because I'm away so much, it's hard for me to, connect, with my family as much as I'd like to. And so can we skip this one and maybe the next one will be, sometimes there's not bartering or, negotiating like that, but sometimes that's what it is. It's like, we know that if someone is like, I can't do this, then it must mean that they really can't do it. And so that comes from a place of trust. So if it's a veto, if it's that, it's usually like, even if it sucks, if you're like, wow, I was really excited and there was money behind it, you got to be like, you know what? I'm going to need that veto someday down the line, or I might, or whatever it is. It's just like this stuff, the trusting that it works out, it comes out in the wash, that's big, and that's hard to do. And it's taken a while to get there, and but the thing is, it's like, if you make too many decisions where, especially if it's based on money, if it's like, oh, we lost so much money by saying no to all those decisions. But imagine if the person didn't voice their concern and you made all that money, but you're so stressed out because you're not home enough. And so then you're like, you know what? I need 3 months off because I'm so stressed out and I need more time at home. And then what's the money that you lost during that 3 months where otherwise you would have had the mental and emotional energy to do so it's a balancing act. And so you just have to trust each other. And, that's where, but sometimes people, it's like, I really don't want to do this, but the feeling is like, it's, it's not like I have anything else going on. And like, I don't feel like it's important, but it's important to 4 other people, or they're at least into it. Like, I'm not going to be the wet blanket, So there's that too, that, people are, that you're making concessions for others and others are making them for you. So that way, when your time comes, you don't feel as weird about saying no,
Man, it takes such maturity and so much trust and even I would say it's like it's a true family. It's a true family.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to.
I mean, and that's what it is. It's more of a family thing because, and it's I'll also a disclaimer. It's not perfect. And there are still things that don't work very well,
of course.
And just like with any family, I mean, there's always going to be a level of dysfunction, but that said, it's like, we at least have, if we are to mature beyond this point and, take care of some of the even still kind of unspoken or unsettled, complications that we have that are under the surface, we at least have a good place to start, 15 years together, there's some loyalty there, so that's good.
Did you also have times where an offer was brought to the table and then you're like, 3 out of the 4 says that's a great idea, and 1 comes up and says, I think it's a terrible idea, hear me out, and manage to change everybody's mind about that? Or, I mean, are you open? So when you discuss these things, it's not a question of whether only we take it or not because the money is good or the exposure is good. There's also some strategic planning behind it, right? Especially at your size right now. You need to decide what you're going to invest your time in, what you're going to say no to. I mean, you can't take everything, otherwise you'd be burnt out. So, I mean, sometimes somebody kind of brings in a wisdom to the band, like, now we need to take the next stage. We need to stop doing this and start doing that. Or you take professional advice about that, or you do it just the five of you, or it's interesting to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah. Well, that's what's good about we have a manager, but that our manager is also like a managing team. It's like she's our greater vision strategy, working with the booking agent, working with, routing, working with offers that come in and weighing what's good. And then she has our day-to-day, like helping with socials, and then the person on the road who's helping with merchandise and blah, blah, blah. So there's a team working there. And sometimes we can voice our opinions about something and we're just like, is there something we should know about this gig? Because it's like, sure, we could do it. Maybe the money's good, but like, why are we doing this? And she can be like, here are the possible things you can get out of it. And here are the drawbacks. And we'll be like, those drawbacks don't sound so bad. Let's do it. Or we might be like, okay, this is our fifth offer for something that has something we've never done or normally wouldn't do, and has enough drawbacks where it's like, we've already done a few of these this year. Maybe not, let's not do this one, And of course, that's a great position to be in always. That's a good thing to remember. If you're able to say no to stuff, that is a good thing, But, it's good to have people that are working for you and helping you make those steps that also have been in situations like that before, who are just like, I've done this with bands before. All my favorite managers say it got them these opportunities, and we'll go, you know what? That sounds good. Even though we don't see ourselves in the situation, it's good to have somebody be like, this is probably worth it, And so it's funny, to get to a point where you need a manager to handle stuff like that. You need to do a lot of work on your own, but the manager also helps your work. And then you get these newer and weirder and bigger offers or whatever. And so, it's kind of like it's a push and pull with, the people that you bring onto your team, in terms of success and handling offers and stuff like that. Because the reason you have a manager in the first place is because we can't handle all that information about the business, nor do we really understand it. The music industry is vast, and we know about writing songs and, playing grooves more than we know about, sales and Billboard charts and, festival ticket bundles and all that stuff. It's beyond me. So it's good to have someone, outside of the band, especially, that can handle that stuff.
And you mentioned before that, so up until things got too big to handle for you, you were all doing everything together, each of you writing songs. So what about the other sides of running a band? I mean, did you have a forte for doing like booking, and Bridget had a forte for speaking to, audience? I don't know. I mean, did you have, each one of you had a niche, or you all did everything?
No, I mean, we all helped with everything, but there were usually point people, like I remember in the beginning, Bridget was the one who was like, I guess it was her organizational brain, I guess. And like, she had the big email inbox, and she was writing letters and promoting the band and calling people. Then there were like, if we had a problem with a CD delivery and, the company was late and they needed to reimburse us, McDuck would do those calls because, he's kind of like this cold Scandinavian heart, and I was the one who was like, I have the car that we can tour in. I can pack the car well. I get the oil changes for the car. I know if that rattle is good or bad, we're fine or whatever. And like, let's keep on going down the road. And Rachel was very good as the lead singer, but also, face to face with people at the merch table and talking to people. And so being the, the front woman of the band and stuff like that. So those are kind of like, for you and it was better than that, but like, yeah, have your roles. And I think that's an important thing too. It's like you have your role in the band musically, you have your role in the band business wise, because if somebody's like, I'm good at playing trumpet, but really all my other skills are not applicable to the music business, that might be a tough position for you to be in, because the business side of things is just, it's how you keep playing and making money. So it's like, that's when that becomes important, you need to have some skill in that regard.
But I
Otherwise,
think, yeah, I also think it's not just you need to have a skill. It's not like a natural skill. It's, you have a bunch of options. Just pick one. I mean, if you're committed and you want to do that other than waiting tables, so pick a skill. If you're likable, go speak to the people. If you're aggressive, go run the contracts. Just pick something and do it. But I also think, you mentioned before that bands break because of those things, the business side and not the music side. And I think that more specifically, it's sometimes there's a feeling of imbalance in a band that let's say you do the booking. So you do 100 emails a week and you get 5 replies, and you do the following week a follow-up, and then another 100 emails, and you call places after they don't respond via email, and you find yourself kind of in an endless loop. You do it all day long. You check your email. Now with smartphones, you get it,
you're at the
ringing
grocery
in your
store.
ass. Sorry, irrelevant, and you're like, fuck. And then so it kind of, it's all over the place. Well, when you're Michael Calabrese, all you have to do is put shit in the car and drive. So if I need to do the emails and Mike only has to pack the car once every other week, Mike is not doing shit.
Right.
And I'm doing all the work, man.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know, and I feel it, that sometimes that can lead to major, I don't know, distrust, feeling like you're worth less than others, you're being abused. I don't know, these kind of feelings. And I wonder if there's anything that could kind of balance it out. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, that is, I remember very specific periods of time in the band when I certainly felt that way, even if I was the one just packing the car, whatever it is, just being like, I don't know if I'm appreciated right now. I don't, I'm feeling resentful, I feel like, this and that and the other thing. And, then, sometimes maybe the feeling would pass, I know in those moments, I mean, maybe if it was just like to know that, I wasn't going crazy, I would be like, I wonder if anyone else is feeling this way. Because I actually remember this. I remember listening to an interview with Ringo, actually. And he said there was like right around the time they were recording the White Album. And he like split. He was just like, I can't take the stress anymore. I'm not doing this. And everyone was like, why, Ringo? Why? And he went to George and he was just like, yeah, I just don't feel like I'm being listened to in the band. And George was like, that's so weird. I feel the same way. And then, Paul would be like, why are you going? And Ringo was like, I just don't feel like I'm being listened to in the band. And Paul was like, yeah, me too. And so I remember hearing that, being like, if you're not talking to one another, if you're not communicating, then you are not hearing other people's sides of the story. You know, it's like there's a tendency, especially when you're busy, especially when you're really busy writing all those emails or doing those gigs, you're saying to yourself, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm all day long. You're thinking to yourself, this is all the stuff I'm doing. And then you look around, and even it could be something as simple as somebody sitting on a couch eating a tortilla chip. And then you're like, what the fuck are they doing? They're not doing shit, you know? But in their head, maybe they're like, I'm so glad I have this tortilla chip. I'm exhausted. I'm working so hard at doing this other thing. And so, you know, it's very important to remember that it's, you know, your perspective is just, especially if you're in a band, if you're a collective, it's just one perspective, and you have your way of seeing what you're doing and how it contributes. And you have your way of feeling when you see other people and what they do and what they say. And I feel like, you know, I mean, as a band, we've worked through a lot of those things, either subconsciously, sometimes it's been out in the open, but we don't normally have a lot of conversations that are that heavy or deep. And it's hard to have those conversations. But I would say that, you know, you need to, in some way, you need to kind of learn how to have them. If you don't want to have the conversation that's like, I feel resentful and I feel like underappreciated, and you're even scared to say those things, and maybe you're like, are they even true or whatever? You at least need to be like, you know what? I know I do all the emails, but like, maybe I need help. You need to admit that, like, you need to admit to yourself that you're like stressing yourself out. And if you can put that out into the band and at least ask for help, and there's people being like, oh yeah, sure. Somebody admits, they're like, you know what? I really feel like I haven't been doing much. And, you know, maybe that person who you think is lazy or maybe and isn't doing much is actually thinking to themselves, you know what? I feel like I'm not needed. And sometimes people need to, when people have more responsibility, when people are asked to work harder, they jump at the chance, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's normal to feel resentful. It's normal to feel those imbalances. But with those imbalances, you got to make sure, you know, is everybody feeling the same way? Is everybody, you know, can everybody see how much work I'm doing? Can everybody feel like, does everybody feel like the work that they're doing is feeling seen too, you know? And that is like, that's heavy, especially for macho men like us and very sensitive men like us. It's hard for men to talk about stuff like that, but like, it's got to be done. And I think I will say this, it helps, you know, that we've been, now we're 3 guys and 2 girls, but for 13, 14 years, it was 2 guys, 2 girls. And, you know, men and women deserve equality and equity, but they are different and their brains work differently, and they're different, you know, emotional levels of awareness and maturity and stuff. And I think that actually has really helped. I feel like if you want a band that knows how to talk about feelings, which is important, get more girls in your band. And I think it might help.
Get more girls everywhere, man. Get more
exactly.
girls everywhere.
All this like dude, that was the thing with Daniel Wright. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of dude energy, you know?
So I also think that being heard is a big one. I mean, it's kind of the other side of the coin. It's like, you know, I've been working for the past 8 years with, I think it's way beyond hundreds of students. And when they come to me for sometimes, you know, for kind of a soul talk, you know, they want to share with me something, and or they're frustrated or they're mad, you find out that mainly they want to talk. It's not, they want to be heard. It's not about the changes. It's not about the gig.
Mhm.
And if they think it's about the gig, you realize that it's just some things that they haven't figured out inside. And when they speak it out, and when they, you know, they talk it out, and you talk together, they're being heard. And at the end of the conversation, there's like kind of a, you know, fulfillment. And it's incredible. It's that thing of being heard, which is so crucial. Man, you really, I mean, all those things, I know you're smart people, but you're also super lucky for figuring it out as a band. You know, it's like
Very
you
much
can
so.
be,
Yeah.
you can be very smart, and the slightest bit of unluck, and you'd be long gone. That's
Yeah,
incredible, man.
absolutely. And, you know, it's important to consider too, like, think of how much time think of how many conversations it takes to like make a friend or to make a band work, or all those important relationships in your life, and it can end with one wrong sentence.
Yeah, one wrong sentence.
Yeah, sometimes you can say the one wrong thing, so you gotta be really careful, and then and I like how your students just needing to be heard, because people like to talk a lot about survival of the fittest as like this axiom of like, when you're hard and you're boom and bam and you're like you're aggressive and that's how you get things done, and what makes you fit and survives. People always forget that, like, humans evolved because of cooperation. And when people are given an opportunity to cooperate, meaning they're heard and they're also put in a position where their opinion matters to someone else and they can listen to someone else be heard. I mean, that's cooperation. People crave that, and it can be scary because we're not used to it all the time, but that's really important. Being heard is kind of like half the battle.
Man, a bunch of random questions and then we wrap it up.
Sure.
We're going for random. So how long did it take you before you started making a living with Lake Street Dive, or making money?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
What do you do during 10 years of not making money with a band that you believe in? You just do everything you can.
Yeah, play with other bands, play odd jobs, make it work as best you can.
Leave your apartment, stay with friends.
Yeah, whatever you can. I mean, if you like it that much, you'll do crazy shit.
What's the most hardcore you went, as the four of you? I mean, as far as living situation, working situation, you had no apartments and you did odd jobs, right?
I had no apartment for 5 years and worked with Lake Street Dive and another band until Lake Street Dive got big enough to where I could just focus on that.
So you had no apartment for 5 years?
No.
Man, this is some deep shit that people need to hear. That's important.
It's really, and I wouldn't recommend it, to be quite honest. I mean, I did it, You
wouldn't recommend it, but you wouldn't change it for the world. You wouldn't trade it.
Yeah, I mean, I like my life now. I wouldn't have changed any of the things that got me there. So, I will say I did it, and I trust that I did it for a reason, and I think that reason worked out. But sometimes it doesn't. And you learn a lot about yourself, and it's good to live simply, I think, is important. But just know that if you're going to do it, it's going to suck too,
Man, so a philosophical question.
Yeah.
So do you think there was any possibility of this thing not working out?
Yeah. I mean, there's still that possibility.
Wait, but you all paid, you gave up your life for it. You said, this is it, guys. And you all gave the ultimate sacrifice. I'll do everything I can. I'll be wherever I needed. I'll give my 100%. And it was honest. It wasn't fake. When I look at people do those things, it's like, it's inevitable. I mean, I find it hard to believe that there's any other outcome possible. I mean, you might have well, broke up if things wouldn't work, but then it means that you didn't put 100%. But if you put 100% and things keep working and you keep putting 100%, I mean, so it took you 10 years, but it ended up happening. I wonder, do you see around you, I mean, because you took that path and you succeeded, but do you think that it's only, I mean, do you think that it's just kind of luck and hard work, or it's a thing that just happens? You put in the time, you put in the effort, and you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I really, it's, after all this time, it's like, I feel like philosophers for millennia have been trying to figure that out. What's destiny? What's fate? What's, free will? What's this? What's that? And I really don't know. I mean, you look back and you say, there was no way that was going to happen without all that hard work. And that's very true. And I look back and say, there's no way that would have happened if any one of us were a little too different in one way, But when you break it down, I mean, it's like would it still have happened if I had eaten a Snickers bar at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday in the summer of 2007? It's like, I don't know. You can break it down, it's like you can break it down to these atomic level, and it's very weird, The other thing about it is it was the time, it was the era too, because at the time, a lot of people were doing this like soul revival in the greater music world, and that kind of became popular, and we weren't doing that, but we were in that kind of sound realm, and we were doing that independently of the retro throwback thing. So it was the timing. I think maybe 5 years earlier, and then people wouldn't have been able to hear it as well as they did at that time. So I don't know. But what I will say is that music aside, it really is about the personalities, because if anything has any lasting power, the thing that gives you the sticking power is the dynamic of the personalities in the band. And I think a and I'll kind of, to put a pin on that, I'll be like, I think the determining factor, as opposed to how hardworking we were, what era it was, what style of music we played, how good the music was, it was more about personality. It was more about interpersonal dynamics. I think if there's a whole pie of, contributions to it being successful, it really is about interpersonal dynamics and how well you can work with someone and still be their friend, and that kind of level of, because I don't care how good someone is at their instrument, if you can't get on a bus with them and smell their farts for 8 hours a day for a month and still love them, then you can't do it. That's
Two more questions. Two more and you're done, man. So I visited your website and I saw that you're big on reducing carbon footprint. So knowing you, I have a feeling you had something to do with it.
Yeah, it was all me, baby. Well, not
talk to me about it. What's the thing behind it? What is it? What do you do? What do you aim at?
Yeah, well, the whole idea is that until there is a way for music to be played by touring bands at festivals, all the traveling we do, the flights, the buses, the hotel rooms, the festival grounds where there's all this trash, it's a big, all the electricity you need for the lights and the sound system, it's a lot of consumption, and that's the way the world works in a sense, and you can write it off, or you could say, you know what, we bring a lot of people together and people listen to what we have to say, and they care about live music and they care about community, and we need to mitigate what the hell we do to this planet by what keeps us in business. We do a lot of taking, and it's very important to give back. And so what we do is, through this company called cooleffect.org, we buy carbon offsets. And the idea is that the amount of carbon you put up into the atmosphere, you buy maybe a tract of forest and protect it, and that tract of forest will absorb the amount of carbon dioxide that you the air. Now, it isn't a sustainable system in and of itself. It's a mitigation factor, because what you put up into the air stays there for like 20 years. So what you do now will affect the next couple decades, but it is holistically this idea that's like, everything has a price, and a lot of the price isn't always money. And so if you can put a price on the very environment in which you give the music to the people, you need to protect that environment. And so that was the kind of feeling we had behind doing that.
Man, that's incredible. That's so great. The power that we have. I mean, the power that you have man, that's beautiful. Wow, thanks for that. And last thing, so there's a young dude listening to this, watching this. He has a band. He wants to make it. He loves you. What do you tell that guy? Quit? Go to business? What do you tell him?
No. It's a good question, and I to boil it down, is tough, but just I mean, do what you want. I mean, if you can't, if follow, I definitely think it's important to follow um, what you like, if you can. And that also needs to balance with, what you're good at, because I don't know always play the music I like the most or the music I, really feel like playing. But sometimes doing what I'm able to do well gets me to opportunities where I can really do what I want, and I think that's kind of the hierarchy. There's doing something that you can do, or there's doing something that anyone can do, and then there's doing something that you can do but that you don't like, and then there's something that you can do and you're like, I like that, I'm good at it, and then there's something that you really want to do. And I think you got to stay as high on that hierarchy as possible. Start with the top and just try to keep from going as far down on that hierarchy as possible. But you really just, it's at the end of the day, I feel like the point is, like, you don't do it alone. So you got to take care of yourself, but you also have to find other people who will help you take care of yourself and who can help you do it, because it's nothing is done by yourself. You really need to rely on everyone else. And so just find the people that want to help out too. I think that's really the crux of it.
Man, I was blown away. Not surprised at all. You're an inspiration, man. I missed you.
Yeah, Matan, I miss you too, man. We should do this again sometime.
I'd love to. We'll keep in touch, man. Thanks for your time, Michael.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Matan. Be well and take care of the family.
Peace. Much love, man.
All right. Shalom.